everyone. I'm Samira Daswani, the host of the podcast, The Patient from Hell. Today, we actually have someone who's been on this podcast before. We have David Moriah back here. Partly because when we did the first episode, we realized that there was a whole theme that we never ever touched, which was faith, religion, spirituality, and how it intersects with the cancer experience. So we're going to go into that theme. But before we do that, David, how are you doing today?
Hi, Sabir. It's so nice to see you again. I am doing almost embarrassingly well. My chemo treatment is working to not only knock out the symptoms that led me into this journey, but also has minimized side effects. So I say embarrassingly well because I get a lot of sympathy. I'm sure everybody who's going through this gets all this sympathy. And I feel like I'm living a fairly normal life right now. I have no idea how long it's going to last. My doctors have been brutally honest with me about stage 4. We can't cure this. We can extend your life and your quality of life, but not giving me false hope of total cure. So, so I don't know how long this stage that I'm going through is going to last. But I've made the decision to just enjoy every day of living a fairly normal life right now. Although I guess what's not normal is going in every 2 weeks, having these drugs poured into me, and then carrying this pack away for 48 hours that, keeps the chemo going. And,
What are you carrying with you for 48 hours?
I carry a pack that has the drugs in it that are connected to me through a tube to my port. And I have to keep it with me at all times. I don't know how many chemo patients have that, but it was actually the protocol that was used at Sloan Kettering, which is where I started and went through my first, I think, 7 or 8 treatments. And then I transferred my treatment to a more local facility in Ithaca, New York, where I live. So instead of a 4-hour drive for my treatment, I take a 15-minute drive. So that's way more convenient. But what's inconvenient is at Sloan Kettering, they gave me this tiny little compact pack that I didn't even think about that I strapped onto my stomach. But now in my treatment center now, they give me this, it's like a fanny pack, and it's big and it's heavy. And I have to strap it on, and I have to be really conscious of the tubes that come out of it and go into the pack. So it's always getting hooked on door handles and door knobs and things. And it's just heavy and it's annoying. And it lasts for 48 hours, and then they disconnect me. And then I kind of sing, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. So for 12 days, then I live as a normal human being. But before that, I have 2 days that I'm sort of carrying this pack around.
Do you mind me?
Not
Can
to
I ask you about
complain.
this?
I'm sorry?
Not to complain. I don't see it as complaining. That is fascinating. I definitely did not have a pack. I had a port.
Uh-huh.
And you come home after they strap this pack onto you?
Yeah, they just send me away. And again, it happened at Sloan Kettering. It happens here. And what they tell, and I've never really probed beyond understanding that what they're saying is the effectiveness will be improved if you continue for an additional 48 hours after your main chemo treatment in the treatment center. If for the next 48 hours, you carry it away and it continues to deliver at a slow pace, I imagine, the chemo drugs.
Wow. And then you have to go back in for it to be removed?
Yeah. When I was at Sloan Kettering, as I say, it was a much more compact and less cumbersome process. And my wife was able to disconnect me. She got trained and she was able to disconnect, so I didn't have to drive 4 hours back. But now
Sorry, that just cracks
yeah, I
me up.
know.
Like, oh my God.
Yeah, one of the things that I think all of us who are going through this realize is your life suddenly revolves around your treatment, when the side effects hit, your schedule, when can you go on vacation, all of that rises to the fore. Um, and so my wife now, it's more complicated and cumbersome here at my new treatment center, and I do have to go in, and the nurses disconnect. Or we were joking the other day about deporting, where I'm getting deported. They take this out of my port so I can live a normal life. So yeah, I'm a deportee.
Humor
What
does
else
have
do you
more.
want to know, Samira? what do your listeners want to know?
I don't know if my listeners want to know this. I know I want to know this.
Okay.
It's fascinating to me because I'll tell you why it's fascinating. And I don't mean to make this I don't mean to intellectualize it, but you open with how normal of a life you're living, right?
Yeah.
And then we're talking about your life, and
And it's
well,
not very normal. It's all relative,
actually,
I guess.
it's all relative. It's all relative.
Yeah.
But I'm always amazed at how. So I work in design, right? That's my day job. Is I work
Oh,
in
yeah, I
design
didn't
and
know that.
product.
I didn't know.
I
Okay.
work in healthcare, and when I got diagnosed, I was head of product at a medical diagnostic company. And as head
Mm,
of product, you spend a lot of time thinking about the user experience and like how do you
yeah.
design something for it to be convenient and easy to use and all this fun stuff. And it always amazes me how poorly designed some products are. Like, why is
Yeah.
it okay to tell a patient that I'm going to strap something to you that's a fanny pack
Yeah.
that's going to have tubes that are running, into your port, which I'm assuming is somewhere up here in the chest
Yeah.
area,
Yeah.
and you're supposed to sleep with it, eat with it. It gets stuck on doorknobs, which is, I think, bad user design.
It is
Just,
terribly designed. And I
mean,
will say that the medical people, from my local oncologist to the nurses, um, they all roll their eyes and they say, we can't get what MSK gets.
huh.
We've tried, and we're stuck with what we have. And I don't want to name the company, I don't wanna, you know, but they freely admit, like, this is really inconvenient and we're really sorry, but this is what we have to work with. Whereas if I go to MSK, it's a non-issue. It's just this little thing that they tuck on, and I go through my day, and it's no big deal.
Yeah.
But I do have 2 days of gross discomfort and inconvenience.
Yeah, it's this is the kind of stuff that gets me really angry, to be completely honest. It's
Sure.
this stuff, right? It's this
Yeah.
stuff where your options are, I'm going to drive 4 hours to get a smaller fanny pack that is
Exactly.
convenient to reuse,
Yeah. Yeah.
versus I'm going to drive 15 minutes to get a
Yeah.
really shitty device,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
drive back to get deported, which
Yeah.
is just,
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. No, I've had moments in the last time this happened, which was the other day. I mean, I'm now 96 out, 4 days out of treatment. So I had 2 days with this monstrosity, and now I've had 2 days without. And there were moments during the first 2 days when I was thinking, like, is this really worth the short drive, or should I, like, get in the car and drive and stay overnight, drive 4 hours and
Yeah.
stay overnight and get this and then drive back. And there was a time when I thought, maybe it is better to just take the drive. And
Wow.
but right, but then uh, clearer thinking takes over, and I go, no, that's ridiculous. I should just put up with this for 48 hours. All right, we didn't intend to go there with this conversation,
We
but
did not. We did not. But I'm
hopefully
actually
it's of
really
interest
glad.
to your listeners. I hope there's something in there that's helpful.
I do think there is. I'll tell you why. Because I think there's some version of what you're describing for everyone,
Yeah,
right? And I think it
yeah,
may
I think
not be
it's
a
right.
fanny pack. It may not be a. But the trade off, the decision making,
Yeah,
the how do I put this? The almost acceptance of a lower bar. I don't know how to describe it. It's like you almost have to accept. There's no alternative. Like, what is the
yeah,
alternative? Your
yeah.
nurse is apologizing to you. They're like, yeah,
Yeah,
we
the
admit
nurses
this
are definitely, they're embarrassed. They are embarrassed by it.
and that's the amazing part of our healthcare system, right? It's like
Yeah.
our clinicians are embarrassed to give us the care they're giving us.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but to be fair to them, and for that matter, for the healthcare system, it's a minor inconvenience to me. And overall, what they're doing and the way they're doing it, the compassionate way, the entire team that I'm dealing with, um, and the efficacy of these pharmaceuticals is amazing to me. So I really don't want this conversation to leave us complaining and griping about the healthcare system, because and we'll start to transition to the faith conversation, which we
yes.
have intended for this hour. Um, I am equally grateful, and I thank God for finding me where I'm going and the support that I'm receiving, all that.
Yeah.
And I thank the pharmaceutical industry, which, as I think I said on my last podcast
Yeah.
with you,
Yes.
I've spent years ranting and raving about the greedy pharmaceutical industry, and now I am like on my knees. Thank you for the products you've developed. Thank
Yeah.
you for what you've been able to do for me.
Yeah. No,
So
I think that's I definitely think that's true. And for what it's worth, I don't think it's all black and white with the healthcare system, right?
sure.
I don't think it's black and white. I just think that because it's such a dire situation in life, a lot of times cancer patients have, and myself included, we accept what is given because we are so grateful.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
sometimes wonder what happens if we were not that accepting,
Yeah.
where we
Well,
expected more, we
mhm,
wanted it to be a better experience, right? So
mhm,
I think it's one of those like funny, and I find myself caught in this trap all the time because I am, like you, incredibly grateful to my docs, to my oncologists, to my
yeah.
nurses who effectively, truly, truly, and like this is not me mincing words, saved my life. Like that is
Right.
a literal
Right.
interpretation of what has happened.
Me too. Yeah.
And at the same time, I'm like, well, what if we raise that bar?
Yeah.
Right? What if the bar was higher? What if we pushed the bar? What if we
Yeah.
expected more?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's kind of that juxtaposition of the two sort of
Yeah.
feeling
Yeah. No, I
states.
know. I know exactly what you mean. And I've been an activist all my life, in
Yes,
politics, as a consumer.
yes,
I'm
yes.
the guy that writes the letter to the president of the company. I'm the guy who organizes a demonstration, political demonstration for a cause. And so, there is a part of me that's like, I'm not going to take this. I'm going to stay here until they change this. Um,
Yes.
but but the other part of my story, which ties into this, is the value of having my wife as an advocate for me.
Mm,
And I know we
mm,
started talking before about your
mm.
experience of going through this during the pandemic when you couldn't have visitors,
Yes.
um, and all of the other um, really chilling aspects of going into the hospital and getting treatment all during the pandemic. I'm so blessed and fortunate that my wife accompanies me to everything. And she actually has a healthcare background. And so she asks the hard questions, even ones that I don't even think of.
Yeah.
Um, and so it allows me to relax. It
Mm,
allows me to
mm,
relax and trust the doctors and the
mm,
nurses and the care they're giving me, because I
mm,
know if they screw up, my wife is right there in their face. Um, and that is liberating. That really
mm,
frees me up to just sit back in the chair, put the pillow behind my head, let it happen.
mm.
Yeah.
Huh. Uh, so I'm going to use that kind of as a jumping point into the conversation on faith and religion, right? Which is
Sure.
there's a lot of trust in your wife that she is there. She's almost she is the reason you're able to take that step back and have that moment of peace, that moment of relief, that moment of like, my
Right.
wife got this. She's the one who is
Right.
making sure that what is happening here is in my best interest. I'm paraphrasing.
That's right.
Um, how does faith and religion enter the picture for you? Because I suspect
Sure.
it's
Sure.
similar.
And we can distinguish between faith and religion because they are related to each other, but they are two separate categories.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yes.
but I'll focus on faith um, because I think obviously I was thinking about this before we came into the conversation, and what I think the most powerful gift to me of my faith in a in a God or a higher power who loves me is not some abstract creator of the universe, but for me, it's a very personal relationship with a God
Mm-hmm.
who loves me, cares for me, and will always care for me, and will
Yeah.
always be there for me, no matter what stage of life I'm in or what, how should I put this? Um, where this life goes, I'll call it.
Mm-hmm.
What what happens when the curtain comes down?
Yeah.
And we know it's going to come down, whether it's 6 months from now, 6 years from now, or I
Yeah.
live to 100. The curtain is going to come down, and much more aware of that, of course, in the last 6 months.
Yes.
Um, and what I found during these 6 months, when I realized, hey, that curtain might come down a lot sooner than I thought. you know, I've been living my life up until the last 6 months, like, oh, it's going to go on like indefinitely, and I don't have to worry about, reaching out to this person or getting this book
Mm-hmm.
written or whatever. It's like now it's finite. Now I know it's going to happen, and what the gift of my faith has done for me is it's given me a calm reassurance that no matter where I go, no matter what the afterlife is like, and I don't presume to know. I'm not one of these black and white heaven and hell, you know,
Yeah.
it's going to be a city with golden streets and all this. Maybe it will be, you know, maybe what's in, and I believe in the Jewish Christian Bible. And so maybe some of those images in the book of Revelations are real. And maybe there will be like a chorus of angels and all the other things, but maybe not. Maybe that was metaphorical. Maybe it's something completely different, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and but whatever it is, whatever that afterlife is, I have a peace and assurance that I'm going to be okay, that God's going to take
Mm-hmm.
care of me.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's going to look like,
Yeah.
but I am so at peace about this. And there's a line in the Christian Bible that talks about the peace that passes all understanding. And that was abstract for me until 6 months ago. And literally, the moment that I was told that this is my situation and we can't cure you, um, you have to deal with this. And the from the moment I heard those words, I was at peace. I felt like, okay, that's what I have to deal with. That's what what life has thrown at me and what God will sustain me
Yeah.
and care for me and prepare me
Mm-hmm.
for what comes next.
Hmm.
So that's my first answer.
That's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. I was actually thinking of my mom right now because uh,
Bless your mom.
oh, she really is.
Yeah, she was
She's a
there for you.
remarkable woman.
She was there for
She
you.
is there for me.
Yeah, yeah, that's special.
No, she is very much presently there for me too. And we were having a conversation yesterday about this, not cancer related,
Hmm.
and I'm pretty sure she said the following words, which is, "You need to remember you are always protected."
Hmm.
And she was referring to our faith and our spirituality and our religion,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
she definitely is a woman of faith and has always, I mean, brought me up that way. I grew up in a very religious family. Grew up in India. Um, my grandfather had um, set up the one of the main temples in my city. I'm actually
Mm-hmm.
named after it. It's called Mira Mandir, translates to Mira Temple, and I'm named after the woman who the temple is named for. Um, so I grew up pretty religious, Hindu religion, and it's been a very important part of my family's identity. I think
Yeah.
since coming to the US, it's more of a distant relationship in terms of the religious aspects for me, but the spiritual underpinning and the faith underpinning has always been there. Having
Yeah.
said that, my mom really is the one that anchors it, right? So
Yeah.
it's almost like I access it through her.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I distinctly remember when going through treatment, she relied on her practices and her faith. That was what anchored her. It just did. It anchored her through
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if it's been your anchor.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's sustained me in many ways, different ways. Uh, One is the support and prayers that I've received from so many people. Um, and as I mentioned in a talk that I gave recently, I don't know if you watched the video that I did. Okay, you did. Great. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time. I appreciate that. Um, yeah, I mentioned there that one of the things that's really struck me from my CaringBridge blog that I write is, and anybody who's listening to this is welcome to. It's a open public CaringBridge blog. Put in my name, David Moriah, and you can see what I write about once a week. I put things in there. Um, and one of the things that has really struck me in the from the blog is in the comments area. I get a lot of responses, and what's wonderful is um, a lot of people are saying in their comments that they're praying for me, that they're with me, they're taking the journey with me, and what's wonderful, I believe is wonderful, is some of those people are Buddhists, some are Hindus, some are Jews. So obviously, some are Christians because that's where my faith tradition and connections are. Um,
Yes.
but from all these different spiritual perspectives, people are praying for me, and that just oh, it just blows me away to think about that. So yeah, I get it. I get it in terms of the anchor, the faith anchor. Um, a lot of it comes to me that way, and also some of it comes from what I wrote about in one of my earlier blogs. A friend gave me this phrase that I'd never heard before, which is Godwinks, Wink, and what she explained to me is that a Godwink is an unexpected moment that comes upon you where it bursts through and is is an undeniable reminder that God is there and exists. And it could be as simple as you walk out the door and there's a sunset that just blazes across the sky, and to me that's like, oh, God is telling me God's there, and the Creator is there making something beautiful just for me right then. That's the way I take it. Or it could be like this, the kindness of a stranger in the supermarket, and somebody like pays your tab or something, and it's like, whoa, that's a God wink. That's God reassuring me that I'm there. I'm in the palm of God's hand. So and it's funny because I had a moment recently where I was kind of down, um, having a bit of a rough day, and I started to pray, and I said, come on, God, give me another God wink. It's like sort of the ATM, God as ATM, it's like, give me a God wink, keep me going. And I got a voice. I got a message in my mind, which is, I think, often how God communicates to us is just these thoughts that, and you find yourself going, where'd that come from? But immediately when I said, give me more Godwinks, the word I got back was, David, they're all around you. What you should be praying for is eyes to see them, a heart to receive it. Not for me to give you more. I've already given you everything you need. What you need and what you need to pray for is an openness and an awareness of what's already out there that God has given me and prepared for me.
I think that's beautiful. I actually, that story resonates a lot, because I just remember diagnosis like it was yesterday. It's been almost 4 years. It's such a clear memory. And there was just a lot of things that could not, so I got, my first scan was first week of December 2019.
Mm-hmm.
I had just turned 30. It was about a week after my birthday. I found the lump myself the night before. I didn't have any pain, no symptoms, like zero symptoms, nothing. And I scuba dive, and my partner and I had gone on a trip and had come back. And for some reason, I had this like super painful cough. And it didn't kick. It was about a week. The night before, I had an appointment with a random PCP at Kaiser. Hey, I'm 30, otherwise healthy, don't have issues.
Yeah.
I found, like, just by the by, I found this lump. And I was like, I've been traveling, won't be anything. It's probably a lymph node, doesn't matter. So I go in for the cough. And the cough triggers a like immediate ultrasound, because as a diver, you get on a flight, it causes blood. There's a whole process behind it. And I had been there, done it before. So I was like, yeah, okay. They're going to rush me in for an ultrasound. And the PCP looks at the lump. He goes, no family history of cancer. You're too young. It's nothing. But if you really want, I'll put it in an order. And I was just like, if you're telling me it's nothing, I don't need to do anything. So no, not really. And he leaves the room. He comes back in. And he says, oh, well, I just put in the order. So if you want to do it, it's there. And I was like, okay. So I decided I won't do the ultrasound. And I'm 2.5, 3 hours later, I'm walking in to get my cough ultrasounded. And something in me was like, you know what? I should just check it out. Like,
sure.
So I checked it out. And of course, I got the next call. And all of this, by the way, I didn't have a full-time job yet. I was consulting for a company. It's December. I know health insurance decently enough that like Jan 1, it's gonna kick over. The company and me had decided I would join full-time in January. That week, completely in parallel, the CEO of the company is like, hey, I actually think you should join full-time this month for a variety of reasons. And I was like, okay, fine, whatever. So I signed the paper, completely separate. Turns out, had I not done that, I would not have had insurance Jan 1.
Yeah.
So just completely separate than that. So that happens. The whole instigation of me even going in for the second scan was because in the meantime, between like the first ultrasound, I'm talking to the chief medical officer at this company, and he was the one who was like, you need an oncologist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He was the first person to tell me that. So there was all of these things that started happening that were kind of just happening. Like me getting a new job at that point in time, me getting insurance at that point in time.
Sure.
One of the board members of this company knows oncology really, really well. I happen to cross paths with this individual. Like all of this just kind of just starts happening. Yeah. And had those things not happened, I am almost certain I would not have gotten the diagnosis I got, would not have gotten the treatment I got, and I am actually not sure I would have gotten the outcomes I have. So, and those are not things that I did anything for.
Yeah.
There was no, so all of that is something I attribute to what my mom calls the world protecting you. Because there's just these things that happen kind of outside of your control.
Yeah. The one thing you said in there that I want to get back to, because it's advice that want to give to everybody. You said you got the first. I can't remember. Was it an ultrasound? Or no, you got the first thing you got was it an ultrasound? Okay. And they wanted to do a scan, and you said, I don't need that. Um, that's the place I want to zero in on, because I want to urge everyone to take the extra step, make sure you're checking out your symptoms, don't poo-poo it, and especially to my brother males who love to deny what's going on in our bodies. And it's okay, I can tough it out. No, treat yourself right and get whatever. Go in as soon as you feel like these symptoms are not right. There's something wrong here, because I felt for at least a month, I felt like there's something wrong here. There's something that just, it keeps coming back. It keeps bothering me. And I procrastinated, and fortunately I finally did get in. My family insisted that I go in. And, I lost a few months. I lost a few months in what could have been early diagnosis and treatment. So I just key on that part of your story, and just urge everyone who's feeling something that's not right to, and I know health insurance and costs and all of that unfortunately factors in America. But what are we spending our money for? If are we saving it for vacation, or are we trying to save our lives? So,
David, I actually want to respond to what you just said, because I think in the survivor population, and I'm now making a distinction very intentionally from, I think, individuals who are probably in the same camp as you are in, and then people who are in the curative setting. Because I can tell you, just having gone through it now many times, post quote unquote, I'm going to put this in quotes because I have a huge issue with how we define cure, but we will not go into that today.
Yeah. By the way, I don't want to interrupt you, but I just want to say, one of my next blogs that I'm going to write is the difference between healing and cure. That's a subject I want to pursue.
Sorry, let me know. I will happily. We can happily share it out in our channels too, because I definitely think it's the definition of cure. I think is problematic. Not to go into that, but in the survivor population post quote unquote cure, when you are in the camp of like NED, so no evidence of disease, it is really hard to distinguish fear of recurrence from actual recurrence. I don't know how to describe that, because what started happening now is any symptom causes the, oh my God, my cancer is back. And I can only say this because I go through this, I don't know, once every 2 months. Yeah. And I was just having this conversation with my partner, yesterday, being like, I think something's up. And he goes, Samira, you have said this to me every 2 months for the last 3 years. Yeah. And I was like, have I? Okay, maybe I have. But it becomes very, very murky. Not to discount from what you're saying, because I clearly went through something similar where I knew something was up, but it just gets murky. It does. Not as clean.
And I know exactly what you mean. I've just gone through this the same thing, because I have pretty much gone now, but for the last couple of weeks I've had lower back pain. That's that as soon as I started feeling this lower back pain, I was like, oh no, it's spread. Oh no, and I'm trying. I do the research. I'm trying not to do the research, but I just found myself lower back pain and the C word. And so, my mind is going like this. And fortunately my team said, okay, let's get you, first we'll get an X-ray. Then they got me in a scan. An MRI. I went first for an X-ray, then I went for an MRI, and they came back and they said, no, there's no spread whatsoever. It's like a structural muscular thing. I'd been driving a lot, and all those, and my wife, I mentioned, she's in healthcare. She's a chiropractor, retired, but she knew enough to say, okay, we got to get you some adjustments and put some heat on your back, all of the normal stuff you do for back pain. But I know exactly what you mean, because as soon as I felt that pain, I was like, oh no. And here I am. I'm the guy who's got the peace that passes all understanding. I'm the guy who's relaxed about this. I'm your poster child for I can handle this. I'm not stressed out. But as soon as that pain hit me, I was stressed out. So fortunately, everything showed up clean, and I'm moving forward. I'm back to the peace that passes all understanding. But I know what you mean. By the way, you gave me a new term. What was it? The three initials for when you're post.
Oh, NED.
NED.
No evidence of disease. Mm-hmm.
No evidence of disease. I'm going to start using that phrase. That's really helpful. I'm a believer in the power of words. That's why I say I don't use the C word, and now I'm going to use the NED. I'm moving towards NED. That's the goal. I'm doing everything I can to get there, and NED is the objective.
I've actually never heard anyone use it in quite that way, but I think that is so incredibly powerful. I think that's incredibly powerful.
Good.
Because I don't think we talk about it. We talk about it in this vague way of like, oh, you're a survivor, you're a thriver, you're a insert word. And I'm just like, Right. And I've been looking for something alternative, and I think you just gave it to me. Yeah. Which is we're moving towards NED. Yeah. That's the goal.
That's the goal.
And for those of us who are fortunate enough to be there, the goal is to sustain it and to keep that as long as possible. So the goal really is no evidence of disease.
Yeah. 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 And along the way, I experience healing. I mean, I feel like I'm healed today. I get up in the morning, I feel good. My energy's good. I have no pain, no symptoms. Yeah. So I can say I'm healed. I may not be cured, but I feel like I'm healed.
Huh. How do you practice your religion every day?
I was thinking of that question, and what I realized, I will freely confess that I am an undisciplined believer in Jesus Christ. I am not someone who has a regular Bible study, every morning I do this kind of meditation or anything. I'm undisciplined. And I experience my faith in spontaneous ways and in occasional bursts. Like sometimes I'll get like the healing and the cure thing, the just difference between the two. I ended up going into a Bible study on that, just my own personal Bible study. I looked for all of the healings that Jesus did, and there's a lot of them. And then I thought about, well, did he really cure those people? I mean, what happens if somebody, I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent, but this is how I practice my spirituality. I find a question or a thought, or a quote or something that somebody says, and then I pursue it. And so far that seems to be working in terms of giving me spiritual satisfaction and connection to my physical healing, and hopefully making me a better person, a better husband, a better friend. But I have to admit, it's kind of an ad hoc practice of spirituality that I do. I mean, I don't know if you were looking for every morning I get up and I read the Bible for 30 minutes. And
I was not looking for anything. I was just curious.
In fact, I was saying to my wife, last night we were talking about this, and I no longer am involved in a church. And I know that's a fairly radical statement, and it's very threatening for some sort of Orthodox Christians. Like, how can you call yourself a Christian and not be involved in a church? But I have found that, I've been involved in churches for many, many years, and I've had leadership positions in churches. And so I know what churches are all about, and I know the beauty of them. I know the fellowship. I know the regular discipline of being in a church. So I have a lot of respect on that side, but I also know the flaws and the foibles and the unhealthy aspects of much of church life. Um, and I have found that my own spiritual development is hindered more by being in a church than being out of it. When I'm in a church, I find myself getting grouchy and cynical and looking at all the flaws. Whereas when I remove myself from the institution, um, and what I call the business of a church, when
Yes.
it's no longer a group
Yes.
of believers fellowshipping and learning and praying with each other. It is a building with a budget and staff and heating bills and custodians, and all of that stuff in my mind gets in the way of the core message of Jesus, to love God, to love each other, and to love yourself. Um, so for me, and I'm not advising anybody to do what I've done, because there are many people who go into churches or temples or mosques, and they are spiritually fed, and it's wonderful for them, and God bless them. I honor that. But for me personally, in my journey, I needed to step away from that world, and I still fellowship with other believers. I'm in small groups, and we talk about life and death, and we pray together, and that's important to me. So maybe I am a little more disciplined than I said, because I do have these fellowship groups that I stay connected to. But it's not about church. It's not about buildings. It's more about the core message of Jesus.
No, I very much relate to that. I very much relate to that. I grew up, as I was mentioning earlier in the conversation, I grew up in, like, quite literally in a temple.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
a lot of my first 18 years was revolved around this very physical place, and I can completely relate to the fact that I think, like a church, there is a institutional business aspect to it. It almost has to be, because it is a physical asset that needs maintenance
Yeah.
and care. Like, uh, it runs a certain way and needs to serve the community, and there's a whole bunch of there's a purpose behind the physical location. So I very much relate to that, and I also relate to the fact that I think for me that transition happened fairly early, which is I found myself attracted more to the kind of principles and the values
Yeah.
versus the practice of it. And fortunately or unfortunate, depending on how you look at it, in India, in my specific ethnic group, while we're Hindu, we also practice versions of Sikhism. So my
Okay.
mom's mom passed that kind of lineage down for us. So we, like the Sikhs, do also have some similar practices.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself just attracted to taking parts from different disciplines that are meaningful and
Mm-hmm.
making a practice for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that has actually come from me post active treatment. I
Uh-huh.
think during
Yeah.
active treatment, it was just I had blinders on. I was just like,
Yeah. Yeah.
need to get through this.
Yeah. And that's what's happened to me too. I mean, if you ask my wife, she would say, "Whoa, you've become just a lot more grounded in your faith. You've been a lot more. I've definitely been a lot more bold. I've definitely been a whole lot more bold in speaking about my faith." Um, and and it all came about because of facing mortality, and and thinking like, how do I want to go out? you know, what do I want my last act to be? And
Yeah.
I wanted to be faithful to my God and Creator, and the one who's sustaining me through this. So I'm willing to talk to anybody who's interested, and that's the most important thing.
Uh, David, I think I'm going to use that question you've been asking yourself as the way to wrap up our conversation, which is, what do you want your last act to be?
Mm,
Like, broadly speaking.
yeah. Yeah, and this is going to tie back a little bit to what we talked about the last time, which is the outdoor adventure world and the outdoor education program at Cornell University that I was privileged to be the founder and now after 50 years, I'm the chair of the board, and um, so that's been to a large extent a purpose in my life is um, first creating, then developing, and now putting this big 50th anniversary celebration together. It was very much of a focus, which we did in July, just last month. We had the anniversary, and so that was a big focus. Um, and what I actually sensed as that was coming up, and I knew I was going to make a talk. I knew there was going to be a story hour, and that was where I was going to um, reveal to my friends and colleagues what I'm going through and talk about it. Um, and what I started to sense was a shift for me about focusing on that that program, that organization, more towards my story and what I've learned and continue to learn through this journey. Um, and so I really have, it's what's been growing on me is a sense of mission and purpose around exactly what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
And you, Samira, are part of my mission and purpose right now, giving me this platform and opportunity to share what I've gone through, what I've learned, what I might be able to impart to others that can help them. Um, and here's another Godwink. What's happened in the last few months since I've been getting this sense of purpose is opportunities have been showing up for me to speak and write. I mean, my CaringBridge blog, even since the last time I talked to you, it's grown in terms of the number of people who read it and comment. Um, I was invited to speak to a church recently, and I'm okay about going into churches. I just don't want to be a part of that organization, but I'm happy to go into a church and talk to people about what I've been going through. And I've had several different speaking opportunities, both on Zoom, podcasts, public meetings and sessions, where I've been able to share what this incredible stage of life has been like for me, and so that's the most important thing that I want to do with the rest of my time. Obviously, there's the spend as much time with my grandchildren and my family, and we're all going off, by the way, to in 2 weeks we're going on a trip to Ireland that I've scheduled. The grandkids and my daughter and son-in-law and my wife, and I scheduled it with treatment. Like, okay, after I get rid of this damn pack, after I get rid of that, I can get on a plane and I can fly over to Ireland, and that's my family. My father's side are all Irish. In fact, I told my kids, who want to do this trip with me, I said I'd love to go over and spend we're going over for 10 days to Ireland. So I'd love to do this. I just hope that you're not planning to like bring me over and leave me in the homeland to die. Just make sure you bring me back, okay? so I'm not sure where that came out from your question, but yeah, I know. I said my main purpose right now that I'm feeling is telling my story. Is for those who want to hear it, to tell my story, and hopefully help people in their journeys. And then the others, just to take advantage of every moment, every day, every opportunity to be with my kids and grandkids, and just to go out and enjoy that beautiful sunset that God gave me.
Oh, I love that. Well, Thank you for joining us again.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you for having me.
anything we can do to support your last act, we're here.
I know.
And
I know.
you tell us what you need, and we're here to support you.
Okay. And I will stay in touch. I promise.
Done. Well, if I don't talk to you before your trip to Ireland, I hope you have a lot of fun.
Thank you.
I will be cheering you on, especially because you will not have your pack with you.
Leave it behind. Yeah.
All right. And we will connect with you once you're back.
Sounds good. Thanks, Samira.
Thank you, David. This podcast, show notes, and newsletter is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute the practice of medicine, nursing, or other professional healthcare services, including the giving of medical advice, and no doctor-patient relationship is formed. The use of information on this podcast or any materials linked from this blog is at the user's own risk. The content here is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical condition they may have and should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions.